Thursday, March 7, Minister of National Defence Bill Blair gave a keynote speech at the Conference of Defence Associations in the storied ballroom of Ottawa's landmark Chateau Laurier Hotel. The room was packed with senior military officers, industry executives, and academics, all expectantly awaiting Blair to try and sugarcoat the current state of the Canadian military.
Canada must do whatever it takes to defend our country.
It's time to target how broken is the CAF, and what does the Minister of National Defence plan to do about it, and when? In the past, it has been the traditional playbook of both the Liberals and, prior to that, the Harper Conservatives to blame the hated media for portraying the Canadian Armed Forces in a negative light. This time out, Blair chose to go a completely different route.
We've read recently in the press, and I actually want to thank Murray Brewster for his reporting yesterday, bringing to the attention of Canadians the state of readiness and preparation of the Canadian Armed Forces.
The title of Brewster's story was "The State of Canadian Armed Forces Combat Readiness Growing Worse, Government Report Warns." The subhead more specifically noted that the Department of National Defence report also says almost half the military's equipment is unserviceable. It would be pretty tough to sugarcoat that to a room packed with many of the same officers who had a hand in drafting the report to which Brewster was referring. So instead, Blair essentially owned up to the shit show, albeit laying some of the blame for the mess on the former Conservative government.
We know that we need to do much more. I want to assure everyone in this room, we will do more.
The internal government report, which Brewster cited in his story, provided a laundry list of current shortfalls crippling the CAF. Apparently, the RCAF, which is in the process of celebrating their 100th anniversary, are in the worst shape of the three service branches. According to the report, 55% of the RCAF's fighters, maritime aviation, search and rescue, tactical aviation, trainers, and transport planes are considered to be unserviceable. That means just 45% of the inventory actually still flies. The RCN came in a not-so-distant second worst, with 54% of their frigates, submarines, Arctic offshore patrol ships, and maritime coastal defense vessels in no state to deploy. For those optimists looking for how full the glass is, that means 46% of the RCN is able to report ready, aye, ready. The rest of the fleet is beached. Coincidentally, that same day as Blair spoke, the Ottawa Citizen ran a cover story outlining problems the RCN are having with a brand new Arctic offshore patrol ship. Namely, that it is experiencing flooding, which causes corrosion. The D&D had tried to convince Citizen reporter David Puglisi that the alleged flooding was negligible. But the video footage supplied and published by the Citizen indicates otherwise. Comparatively, the Canadian Army was the only branch that managed what could arguably be considered a barely passing grade, with just 46% of their primary combat equipment and vehicles considered hors de combat, which means a less than comforting 54% still rolls and fires. However, given the acute shortage of spare parts, ammunition, and trained technicians, even this marginal result is bound to diminish unless the course of the CAF can be drastically altered and quickly.
There is a sense of urgency. We must change the way in which we recruit and retain the people of our forces.
Personnel shortages are the major crippling factor at present, with the CAF short nearly 16,000 service members out of a combined authorized reserve and regular force strength of 115,000. Blair had to admit that one of the solutions to the recruiting problem had been to remove the prerequisite that an applicant be a Canadian citizen. As of last year, one needed only to be a permanent resident to enlist. According to another recent CBC report, that policy change resulted in more than 21,000 permanent residents signing up at recruiting centers. Unfortunately, due to the lengthy process required for security background tests on these individuals, fewer than 100 of those recruits are actually in uniform today.
If what you have been doing for decades is no longer working for you, you can't just keep doing it. And over the past 3 years, more people have left than have entered. That is frankly, it's a death spiral for the Canadian Armed Forces. We cannot afford to continue on that pace. We've got to do something different. We must focus on what needs to be done.
While Blair openly admitted in his speech that the present CAF is in terrible shape, he made no concrete announcements and gave no specific timelines as to when the Liberals will even announce their long-anticipated defense policy update. This was formerly the Defense Policy Review, undertaken on an urgent basis following Russia's February 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Blair would only say that this new policy paper would come soon. This has been On Target. I'm Scott Taylor.